At the confines of the cosmos, beyond the nebulas that never knew light and the stars that already died before shining, there is a law that no civilization dares to violate. A simple sentence transmitted from generation to generation, written on monuments engraved on lunar rocks, encoded in languages that no species has yet managed to fully decipher. It echoes in every corner of known space, a silent reminder of something that even artificial gods fear to awaken. The message is short, but its weight has shaped entire empires. Do not wake the humans. No one remembers where it came from. Some say it was left by the first interdimensional explorers. Others believe it came from the humans themselves before they disappeared. There are those who swear it is only superstition, a story created to scare navigation apprentices. But it doesn't matter who wrote it, because everyone, absolutely everyone, obeys. And perhaps that is exactly what keeps the universe at peace. The Xelian, for example, were the peak of civilization. Beings made of living crystal, vibrating in tones of light that reflected their emotions. Their cities floated above the gaseous seas of Zel Prime, sustained by columns of pure energy. For them, time was not a line. It was a crystal too, multifaceted, moldable. They bent space like artists sculpting light. The bioluminescence in their bodies pulsed like a living symphony as they walked on bridges of energy between towers of liquid glass. They were beauty, mathematics, and arrogance in solid state. They had mastered what they called the intimate structure of reality, turning atoms into songs, stars into sculptures. Compared to them, most of the other species still crawled in the shadows of ignorance, and even so, even the mighty Xelian obeyed that law. Do not wake the humans. The sentence was treated with reverence, but also with discomfort. No one knew how to explain. The oldest records only mentioned humans as an ancient biological species, originating from a small, forgotten blue planet, the Earth. They had developed too fast, burning their world in wars and uncontrolled technological advances until they stopped. During what their records called the Third World War, the humans simply disappeared. Satellites showed hundreds of ships leaving the planet, gigantic, silent, and inside them, millions of cryosleep capsules. They decided to sleep. There was no record of a final message nor explanation for the gesture. Only silence. Since then, entire civilizations have found their ships wandering through space, colonies of eternal sleep. The humans remained unchanged inside their translucent cocoons, like statues of flesh preserved by time. The first ones who tried to study these ships never returned. Others, when they returned, spoke of sounds that came from the vacuum, of human voices whispering in frequencies that should not exist. And then the warning was created. The first and last order left by those who survived: let them sleep. Throughout the millennia, the rule became more than precaution. It became religion. No empire dared to break it. No scholar dared to contest it. Until, as always happens with the great tragedies of the universe, someone too curious decided to try to understand why. Zith, chief of science of the exploration ship Ecliptica 7, was a respected Xelian with 400 cycles of impeccable career. His mind was as sharp as the crystal that composed him. But there was a flaw he could not deny: curiosity. And in that stellar cycle, that curiosity would lead him to discover something that the entire universe would prefer to keep ignoring. The Ecliptica 7 had detected an anomaly drifting in the outer sector 19A, a colossal metallic object, without propulsion, without communication, but with internal energy. Zith and his team approached, and when the cameras magnified the image, he knew what it was. A human ship, huge, ancient, and alive. "Bring it for orbital analysis," he ordered, his voice resounding in controlled harmony. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that carries fear. One of his assistants hesitated. "But sir..." "The law?" Zith looked toward the golden horizon of the planet below. The law, the old superstition. A sentence that no scientist had ever dared to question. But there it was, before him. The opportunity to discover a mystery that had endured for millennia. "Laws," he said, "are made to protect the unknown. But knowledge is what defines who we are." And with a simple command, he sealed the fate of his people and of the universe. The human ship floated before the Ecliptica 7 like a sleeping colossus. It had the size of a small moon, its metallic hull covered by scars of past eras. There were no signs of propulsion nor of movement. Even so, the Xelian sensors registered latent energy, vibrating in constant frequency, a rhythm almost biological. It is as if the ship itself were breathing, commented Zith, his inner light oscillating in a tone of fascination and caution. The interior of the hull emitted pulses similar to heartbeats. Each echo seemed to respond to the scanning instruments, as if the ship knew it was being observed. Zith approached the main panel. The readings showed a number. 1 billion capsules, he murmured. 1 billion humans sleeping. 1 billion hearts that somehow still beat after millennia. Sir, warned one of the operators, I recommend that we move away. The energy fields are unstable. There is quantum interference. Zith tilted his head, observing the hologram of the human ship slowly rotating. Unstable. Or protective. He had studied ancient cryogenic technologies for decades, but nothing in his databases, not even the theoretical models of Xelian science, explained the precision he saw there. Each human cell was suspended in perfect time, without degradation, without failures. It was as if sleep had stopped the very universe for them. What kind of species reaches that level of perfection and simply decides to sleep? He asked. No one answered. No one ever knew. That was when his young assistant Zix entered the command room with the uncontrollable excitement of those who had not yet learned the weight of prudence. Chief, I analyzed the readings of the cryogenic fields. There is something impossible in them. Impossible? They are self-adjusting. The entire ship is alive, responding to our scans. Each capsule is connected to a central quantum core that rewrites the local reality on a microscale. Zith furrowed the light that ran through his body. Rewrites reality? Yes, it is as if the cryogenic system manipulated the fundamental probabilities of time, which would be impossible for any known technology. But for them, it seems routine. Zith was silent. He knew that was dangerous, that the legends were not just myths of primitive peoples. But the desire to understand was greater. The temptation of knowledge was the fire that moved all civilizations. And he, more than anyone, believed that to understand the humans meant to understand the very universe. Zix, he said, prepare a probe. We will not physically touch the ship, but I want direct readings from the energy core. Configure it for minimal interference. The young one nodded, enthusiastic. In minutes, the small sphere of light was launched. It crossed the vacuum like a miniature star, approaching the human colossus until disappearing inside one of the fissures of the hull. For a moment, everything became quiet. The sensors stabilized. The silence seemed absolute. Then, the Ecliptica 7 trembled. Alarms echoed. The gravitational fields began to distort. A sound, deep and growing, filled the cabin, a noise that the sensors could not translate. It was something between a voice and a whisper, reverberating through every surface. And suddenly the lights of the human ship turned on, one after another. Thousands, millions. A field of stars awakening in the void. Abort. Retrieve the probe, shouted Zith, but it was already late. The quantum field of the human ship expanded, connecting with the Xelian systems as if it were analyzing them. We are being scanned, exclaimed Zix. They are reading everything, a molecular structure, data, mental frequencies, everything. Zith's voice failed, the first crack of panic resounding through his crystalline body. Shut down communications. Disable the propulsors. Cut any interaction. Nothing worked. The human ship responded with perfect synchrony. It was like looking at a mirror that reflected thought before it even occurred. And then came the sound. A simple transmission, clear, impossible to misinterpret. Who dares to disturb our sleep? The silence that followed was more terrifying than any scream. Zith felt the vibrational frequencies of his body fall into disorder. It was pure fear, a sensation the Xelians believed they had overcome millennia ago. But not now. Not before that. Emergency transmission, he ordered, his voice trembling. Ultraviolet code. Human awakening confirmed. The response from High Command came instantly. Zith, move away immediately. We are sending containment fleets. You violated the universal law. I can explain. There is no time. And then the communication fell. Outside, the Xelian fleet appeared from hyperspace in defensive formation, surrounding the human ship. Crystalline lights blinked in a siege pattern, but the human colossus did not react. On the contrary, it seemed to observe them. The temperature of the energy systems increased, and a new transmission echoed, not only in the communicators, but in the minds of all the Xelians. Present, you have awakened us. The voice was calm, human, but there was something in it. An echo that sounded like the universe itself. Recalling an ancient trauma, Zith could not respond. Nor could anyone, because everyone knew, even without understanding how, from that moment on, the old law was no longer superstition. It was prophecy, and it had just been fulfilled. The Xelian ships surrounded the human colossus like jewels suspended in the vacuum. They formed a ring of cold lights around the colossal ship, which, even motionless, seemed to observe everything. No sound, no movement, only the ancestral fear of having done something that the entire universe said never to do. The decision of the High Command was immediate, to send a diplomatic mission. If there was a chance to resolve the unthinkable, it would be through diplomacy. The chosen one was Ambassador Crystal, the most refined among the Xelians, a creature of pure light, known for her voice capable of transforming insults into compliments. If anyone could speak with the humans, it was she. When the team docked on the human ship, the corridor that opened before them exhaled something different from any known technology. The air was warm, alive, perfumed by compounds that simulated a humid forest, an attempt to recreate Earth inside the steel. Lights pulsed softly, as if the ship itself breathed. The doors moved on their own, and on the other side, they were there. Humans. Tall, with deep dark circles, disheveled hair, and all with steaming mugs in their hands. No battle suits, no aggressive posture. Only a confident serenity, almost provocative. The human leader, with a tired expression, raised the mug. So, it was you. Congratulations. You pressed the button before the alarm. Ambassador Crystal, reflecting dozens of diplomatic tones of blue and silver, tried to maintain composure. In the name of the Galactic Alliance, we... Forget it, Shiny. He drank another sip, his gaze firm. Do you have any idea how long it took to synchronize the sleep cycle of billions of people? And now, all lost. Thanks a lot. The diplomat's silence was almost tangible. Zith, observing from a distance, recorded every word with the same fascination as one who watches a star about to explode. Suddenly, a second human looked at a panel. We have a problem. Everyone turned. Pizza. It's gone from the universal records. The word echoed like a sentence. The humans stood still for a second, and then a chorus of lamentations echoed through the corridor. A Xelian diplomat literally cracked in half. Another lost luminescence. They are in mourning, murmured Zix. For food? Zith only replied, by the gods, I hope that's all. When the chaos calmed down, the human leader took a deep breath. You think we entered cryosleep because we were running out of resources, don't you? Crystal nodded. That's what our records showed. The human gave a dry laugh. Yeah, cosmic gossip. The truth is that we solved everything. Clean energy, world peace, quantum travel, immortality, reality shows, and we got bored. So we decided to sleep a bit. Boredom, Crystal repeated, incredulous. That's it. The universe is big, but sometimes it gets boring. So we took a cosmic sabbatical. Another human behind him raised the mug. We called it Project Nap. Technical name. And the warning? Asked Zith, unable to contain himself. That phrase, do not wake the humans. The human leader smiled, almost proudly. Oh, that! We were the ones who wrote it. Best prank in history. The idea was to have peace for a few centuries. And it worked. The Xelians looked at each other in absolute silence. Millennia of fear. Centuries of reverence. All because of a human joke. In the following days, coexistence began. The humans asked for coffee, reinstated pizza as a sacred item, and resolved interstellar disputes with karaoke. The void crawlers, feared for ages, were disarmed with hot chocolate and bubble wrap. We're not evil, they said. We were just stressed. The entire universe began to change and laugh together. Before saying goodbye, Ambassador Crystal still asked, And if, in the future, someone forgets the rule, the human leader raised the mug. Then remember this: rules exist to protect both sides, the one who sleeps and the one who wakes. Just don't do it without coffee. The doors closed, and silence returned to the corridor. But this time, it was not fear. It was respect. The Zealians finally understood the true meaning of that ancient law. You do not wake the one who transforms the universe just by opening their eyes. The awakening of the humans spread through the galaxy faster than a warp jump. In a few weeks, every interstellar civilization knew the forgotten species from Earth was back. And the universe entire entered a state of disbelief. In the galactic councils, scientists, generals, and religious leaders tried to understand the impossible. For millennia, it had been believed that humans were a tragedy lost in time, victims of their own arrogance. But now it was discovered that they had chosen to sleep. Because they were bored, the impact was devastating. In the Keelan Confederation, the Supreme Council declared an emergency meeting. They mastered time, energy, and the mind, and decided to take a nap, as if the universe were their couch. In response, the Grand Orator of Arctis summed up the collective feeling, "We are doomed." Meanwhile, the humans did not seem worried. They were busy tidying up the house. They reactivated old colonies, corrected planetary orbits, balanced gravitational fields, because the alignment looked ugly. A human, observing the Kepler constellation, commented casually, "These stars are misaligned. Who organized this?" And in a few hours, they moved entire solar systems. The Zealians panicked. "You can't just move a stellar system," shouted High Commander Crystal. The human only replied with a smile, "Yes, we can. And we're proud of the result." The news spread. In a galaxy accustomed to order, the humans were creative chaos incarnate, and by some miracle, everything they touched worked better. The Keelan factories produced 3 times more after the humans, optimized the coffee flow. The Golian abolished millennia of hierarchy after a human taught them the concept of casual Friday. And the Zealians, once the greatest bureaucrats of the universe, discovered the art of doing nothing for an entire day. Instead of dominating, the humans reorganized. They transformed empires into communities, kingdoms into neighborhoods, wars into games. "Sometimes," said the human leader, smiling, "the best way to rule the universe is to make it laugh." Under their influence, the Universal Community Center was born, a gigantic space station in the heart of the galaxy, made for all species to coexist. There, political discussions happened at dining tables, treaties were signed between karaoke rounds, and diplomatic disputes were resolved with dance competitions. "Protocols are just rules wearing suits," said the human mediator, while teaching a reptilian minister to play video games. Zith, now named Chief of Cultural Contact, watched everything with astonishment and a strange kind of pride. The humans had promoted him, even being the one responsible for the accidental awakening. "You are the first being in the universe to achieve something truly important," said the human leader. Zith blinked, confused. "And what would that be?" "To wake us and survive." He realized that for the first time, there was no fear among the species. There was curiosity. The humans were indeed too powerful, but they did not use that power with tyranny. They used it with lightness. And that lightness was contagious. The void crawlers, who once devoured entire moons, now worked in an orbital bakery, selling breads with filling of darkness. "We are not evil," said their collective mind. "We were just underfed." A human replied, "Welcome to the club. With each new cycle, more species adopted human customs, 2-hour siestas, laughter in meetings, coffee toasts at the end of each debate, and, without noticing, the entire universe began to orbit a new kind of gravity, the human one. But amid this organized chaos, there was something subtle. Zith began to notice in the humans a growing tiredness. Not physical, but existential. They moved fast, created, reformed, played, but sometimes looked into the void as those who search for something beyond. One night, observing the artificial sky of the station, Zith asked the human leader, "Why do you do all this? Why keep changing the universe if you already dominate it?" The human stayed silent for a moment, the coffee vapor rising like mist among the stars. "Because it's what we do. We change things, not to control them, but to remember that we are alive. Zith studied him. And when you get tired? The human smiled, his gaze distant. Ah, my friend, when we get tired, we sleep, and we dream of what doesn't exist yet. The answer sounded like prophecy, and without the Zelians realizing it, the cycle was beginning to repeat. The humans were building something, vast, silent, and mysterious. A project called only the Second Dawn. Zith tried to investigate, but the files were locked in encryption levels that not even Zelian physics could decipher. When questioned, the human leader only replied with a calm smile. It's a surprise, and like every human surprise, the entire universe would feel the effects. Too late. A galactic year had passed since the Awakening. The universe, once rigid and divided, now danced to the human rhythm. Orbital cafes appeared in every station. Automatic translations included Earth slang. Even the official calendar of the Alliance began to have something that had never existed in any culture before the humans: weekends. Their chaos had become harmony. Laughter, a new diplomatic language. And the galaxy blossomed, but something began to change. Small, subtle, like a tide receding before the storm, Zith noticed first. During a meeting at the Universal Community Center, now equipped with sofas, snacks, and background music, the human leader yawned. Then another, and another. In minutes, all the humans present were drowsy, staring into the void with that distant look of one who begins to hear their own soul. Zith, intrigued, asked, "Is everything all right?" The human leader smiled, resting his chin on his hand. "Oh yes, just tiredness. You know when you sleep too much, stay awake long enough to change the world, and then start wanting to sleep again?" A silence spread through the room. The Zelians exchanged looks of contained panic. Crystal, the ambassador, choked on her own light. "You can't be thinking of..." "We can," he replied with a serene smile. "It's time for another nap," chaos spread. The entire galaxy went on alert. Requests for audience, emergency transmissions, pleas in 1,000 languages, all saying the same thing: do not sleep again. But the humans had already decided. They were silently building enormous sphere ships, covered by pale blue energy, the same ones they had used millennia before. They called the project the Second Dawn. When Zith managed to get authorization to visit them, he was speechless. Inside the spheres, energy fields pulsed like hearts. Millions of crystalline capsules, shining like stars in incubation, awaited the new collective sleep. It was beautiful and frightening. "You're going to sleep again?" he asked, almost pleading. "Why?" The human leader watched the artificial horizon of the hangar, where only the reflection of the stars on living metal could be seen. "Because we've done enough for now. The universe is stable, breathing well. It's time to let it live on its own until it becomes interesting again." Zith tried to argue. "But you are the balance. Without you, chaos will return." "Maybe," replied the human. "But that's how things grow. Chaos is the price of creation." He gave a slight smile. "Besides, we'll leave instructions. Real ones this time." Crystal, still incredulous, asked, "Instructions? What kind of instructions?" "How to make coffee," he replied, amused. "And how to laugh on bad days. The rest, you'll learn." And then the moment came. The sphere ships began to close their containment rings. A white, intense glow enveloped each capsule, and the energy of sleep, that same impossible field that distorted time, began to pulse. There was no haste, no fear. It was a ritual. Dozens of species watched from the windows of their fleets in reverent silence. Some cried, others prayed. Zith just watched, paralyzed between admiration and anticipated longing. The human leader turned to him one last time. "Zith, you understand, don't you?" "I think so." "Then keep this. Every civilization needs to sleep. But what matters is not the sleep, it's what it dreams." And with one last coffee toast, the last awake human smiled. "Oh, and keep the rule. For tradition." The lights of the capsules lit up one by one. First hundreds, then thousands, then millions, until the void was filled by a sea of sleeping human stars. The spheres began to move away slowly, entering gravitational warp. And when the last beam of light disappeared, the galaxy became silent. A different silence, not of fear, of gratitude. Zith remained there for hours, looking at the empty space. His crystals pulsed in soft tones, reflecting what remained of the human presence. Then finally, he whispered to the infinite, They taught us to make coffee before sleeping again. And the ancient phrase engraved in the annals of all civilizations shone again with a new meaning. Do not wake the humans, not as order, but as reverence, as remembrance, as love. Because in every galaxy, in every star, and in every mind that one day learns to dream, there will always be the echo of what they left behind. Laughter, curiosity, and the courage to rest. Even when one can dominate everything, the universe began to spin again, lighter, more human, and in the shadows of space, the subtle sound of an immense heart still pulsed, as if the very cosmos had fallen asleep with them. Sometimes, even the universe needs a good nap. But this is only one of the many stories forgotten at the frontiers of time. If you've made it this far, subscribe to the channel Echoes of the Last Era to hear more tales of lost worlds, forbidden loves, and secrets hidden among the stars. Leave a like, share, and until the next echo.